Hello and welcome. My name is Biagio Mazza, Pastoral Associate at St. Sabina Parish in Belton, Missouri, and I'm here to welcome you to another Do You Know series question. Today's Do You Know question is, do you know the backdrop to Pope Francis's encyclical Fratelli Tutti? We begin a series on Pope Francis' encyclical Fratelli Tutti on confraternity and social friendship, which was issued on October the 3rd, 2020. This video will examine the backdrop to the actual encyclical, with future videos examining the key themes that surface throughout the encyclical. We begin by looking at Jorge Bergolio. When he was elected Pope, chose the name of Francis, the first Pope to ever choose this name. Why? Because Pope Francis held St. Francis of Assisi in high esteem, especially his example and his words, and was inspired by many of the key themes that Francis really focused in on during his entire life, especially concern and care for all creation, living a life of simplicity and poverty, as well as kind of a common familial understanding of the entire human family and its relationship to all of creation. So Pope Francis, inspired by St. Francis of Assisi, penned a number of encyclicals that really highlight some of the key themes of of St. Francis himself. For example, in 2015, Pope Francis released his encyclical on the environment, Laudato Si, on care for our common home, in which obviously he jumped off of St. Francis' Canticle to creation, to Brother, Sun, and Sister Moon, and so on. On October the 3rd, on 2020, on the actual eve of the feast of St. Francis, on October the 4th, Pope Francis signed his encyclical Fratelli Tutti at the very tomb of St. Francis in Assisi, Italy, in order to, again, to show the connection between St. Francis and what actually inspired Pope Francis to write many of these encyclicals. So the encyclicals is called Fratelli Tutti, on fraternity and social friendship, and it really highlights in many ways the key aspect of Francis' life and understanding of what it means to be in relationship with the entire human family and creation, and was one of the highlight of his order, the Franciscan order that he had founded almost 800 years before. Pope Francis, the motivation for writing this was Pope Francis wanted to address the social issues and the many divisions that are really impacting the human family today. Pope Francis calls for a new social order of brothers and sisters to all. And so the call was to hopefully bring about a profound social and political transformation, to build a human family anew, a human family that is concerned for the common good of the entire people of God. It calls all people of goodwill to be attuned to the common good of all humanity and of all creation, something that St. Francis held in high esteem. In this encyclical, Pope calls us to social and political engagement that prioritizes human solidarity and common good. So the Pope sees human fraternity, the relationship of brothers and sisters of all, especially concerned for the most vulnerable, as the key, the vision that's going to inform and form us all, to think and to commit ourselves to the whole human family. Pope Francis in this encyclical is trying to counter much of the selfish interests and individual agendas that we all have that we seem to experience in this world today, or even the exclusionary national agendas that people have. In other words, Pope Francis calls us to build bridges that connect us to people, as opposed to walls that cut us off from people. We are called to love and to service of all, modeling obviously on Jesus, who was willing to give of himself completely, even his own life, for the sake of others. This encyclical was written during the pandemic, and it was a call to care for the common good of all, which was desperately needed during the pandemic. And unfortunately, as Pope Francis sees it, it did not quite work out. The concern for all was not quite evident during the pandemic. And so the encyclical attempts to outline, if you want, numerous responses to the current divisions and disharmony that exist among us. What are some of those responses? That would be to work towards the social human friendship of all, to promote the inalienable dignity of every human person, and to commit to work towards peace in the world. And Pope Francis sees these as a way of addressing the ideologies of self-interest, the poisoned conversation that you see on social media oftentimes, and the communication that exists that poisons one another, and the many forms of discrimination and racism. So ultimately, Pope Francis in this encyclical calls us all to build a new world consciousness, thus creating a world community that really allows us to live as brothers and sisters to all, which is essentially the very meaning of Fratelli Tutti. So I hope this has helped to explain just a bit of what the backdrop was to Pope Francis's encyclical Fratelli Tutti, and I hope you'll return again to more serious question as we continue to delve more deeply into this really profound encyclical. Thank you very much.